This is the story of two men named Tyler and Thomas. They spent their days bickering to each other about the sometimes old and rather outdated rides, attractions, shops and areas in the Walt Disney World theme park in Florida. They thought to themselves, what would they do if they had infinite time and money to change everything? And then, one day, something happened that would change them forever. They discovered a whole fan community of like-minded Disney fans who would appreciate their ramblings and hard opinions about theme park attractions put into a monthly podcast. And that is where our story begins. Welcome, foolish mortals. You're listening to Ride Rehab on WDWNT.com. And now, here are your hosts, Tyler Mann and Thomas Kiernan. Now, as they say, look alive, and we'll begin the show.
Welcome to Ride Rehab. I'm Tyler Mann.
And I'm Thomas Kiernan.
Tom, how about that new intro?
Oh, it was...
I didn't tell you I was getting that made.
No.
I'm very glad you liked it.
Yes. Today we're recording from the collector's collection. We're in one of his display cases.
Yep.
But thankfully, this display case is soundproof, so it's actually better than where we usually record our podcast. So,
you mean abandoned elevator shafts and escalator cages?
Yes, indeed.
Today is a very special episode. We're not focusing on any one attraction or any one theme park. Instead, we're covering a very big theme, which is currently taking over Disney World and other Disney parks around the world. How can we add Guardians and ruin this attraction?
For context, let's talk about the Guardians of the Galaxy movies.
Yes.
So the first one came out, 3-4 years ago now? And that movie saved Marvel, is what I'm going to say. Or rather, saved Marvel for me. Because...
it did something different.
Yes.
It went away from that cookie-cutter sort of superhero in New York storyline.
Yes. This was in no small part due to James Gunn's vision.
Oh, absolutely.
The Guardians of the Galaxies were a C-list, maybe even D-list property at best, until James Gunn took them and said, I could make a fun movie about them.
At the moment, we have one Guardians ride, which is in Disney's California Adventure, and we're getting a future one in Florida, and we're probably going to get a lot more in the future, especially with Marvel Land sort of slated to open on the other side of the planet. It's going to be a big thing, and there's going to be a lot more Marvel stuff, but more specifically, there's probably going to be more Guardians, seeing as how these rides are super successful. I figured, you know, it'd be fun. Let's just see how many different rides, attractions, shops, parks we could shoehorn Guardians of the Galaxy into. Mm-hmm. But more so, can we make it work? We both made our own list of things that neither one of us have heard it. We're going to talk about it for the first time here on this episode. So behind my thought process was, not only do I want to add Guardians, but I want to make it work. Like, I actually want to come up with a story and make it feasible. Did you have any thought process behind what your creations were?
Well, no. You said your theme was add Guardians, ruin a ride.
Yes.
So I thought, what rides would be made the most tonally inconsistent
Okay.
by the addition of the Guardians of the Galaxy? I did, however, exclude Journey into Imagination from this because we talked a lot about Journey into Our Imagination and shoehorning in IPs in the actual episode we did on that. So
yeah, well, I purposely left out Guardians because I wanted to talk about an idea on this episode. Because I've been sitting on this idea for a long time. And
I know. I know you have.
Let's see. Okay, well, rock, paper, scissors. Who goes first?
Okay. Rock, paper, scissors.
Tom goes first. Tom.
All right. So, my first thing that I have written down on this sheet of paper...
I'm so excited to hear these.
...is Guardians Mountain, which is Splash Mountain, but Guardians of the Galaxy themed.
I was wondering which mountain you were going for.
And we are going to replace Briar Rabbit with Rocket Raccoon. So instead of, like, oh, please don't throw me into that briar patch, Mr. Fox, it's, listen, you dirty mook, don't throw me into that briar patch. I'd hate it there, or whatever Rocket sounds like.
Shoot you in the face with my laser blaster.
I genuinely don't, that was really all I had, was replacing Rocket with Briar Rabbit, and I guess you could replace other characters with other Guardians characters.
It's like a 12-minute ride.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's a 12-minute log flume ride. Unfortunately, you never got to ride it the last time we went.
I did not.
First time.
I was about to say I did not want to ride it.
Okay.
I know you wanted me to, but that's a drop ride.
It was under refurbishment last time, so
That's
neither
fine.
one of us got.
Well,
to
guess
ride
what? It must be because they're already putting
They're
Guardians.
already putting Guardians in there. That's what's taking so long.
Yeah.
They're just hiding him. They're just gonna like rip the fur off of the existing fur rabbit.
That's right.
There'll be a raccoon underneath.
Exactly. I guess we could. I don't know the other characters. All I know is Briar Rabbit. I was gonna say what other. I don't know the other characters, so I wouldn't know who to replace.
It's just,
the other characters
it's just
with.
say the word brer and then the name of an animal that exists. That's pretty much it.
But
just
who,
brer goose and
what-
brer
what-
steak.
What Guardians characters would we bring into this ride other than Rocket?
I mean, someone's got to try and kidnap Rocket and I guess put him in a giant thing of honey and try and eat him.
You know what?
So you may as well just have like Novacore, maybe.
I was gonna say not Novacore. Those gold people from Guardians 2, and then the honey isn't honey. It's like, this is our biotic gel, and we're going to put you in it, and you're going to dissolve. I don't know what the plot is. I don't know why the honey's involved, but the point is that you still get the honey. That was my idea for Guardians Mountain. Your turn.
Okay. It's tough to be Rocket Raccoon, which is it's tough to be a bug from Animal Kingdom. Okay, but this, I was like, how can I make this work? I started off by making a pun in the title, or just by making the title funny, and then I'm like, but how would it work?
Yes.
Fitting into Animal Kingdom, having an animal host it, why does a bug host it, except that we learn about bugs?
Bugs are animals.
Right.
And
so,
we need, well, all right. If I may, there's no other point where you examine insects at Animal Kingdom.
this is true.
So a whole ride dedicated to them. It's also an IP. Also, Guardians doesn't have to do much with animals. Rocket Raccoon is the only animal.
Exactly, you have Rocket,
But then
and here's how it starts.
Okay.
The show starts. We still enter the Tree of Life the same way, and then Rocket just walks out, and he's like, "What? What do you want? You want to learn about raccoons? I'm not a raccoon." I'm me, and he does this whole bit, and then he's like, "This is a raccoon," and then he shows you a raccoon. He's like, "Yo, this is a raccoon, okay?" And then he just describes animal. It's just like a 10-minute show of Rocket yelling at you and pointing at what animals look like. That's just the whole show. It's tough, and then he's like, "You know what? It's tough to be me. Good night," and then you just leave. That's the whole thing. Again, I just based it off of the title, and I'm like, where could we go from here? But there are fictional animals in Guardians of the Galaxy.
But
there's like alien monsters and stuff like that.
But Alien Kingdom, Animal Kingdom.
Whoa.
Yeah, don't worry, we'll get to that
We'll
later.
get to Animal Kingdom on a whole episode.
Yes, but Guardians has a lot of fictional animals. At least, even though they're cartoony, A Bug's Life tries to have real insects.
I think we can agree that regardless of what our ideas are, if they're bad or good, like, people would complain about them, even if it was like, even if Joe Rohde came up and said, we are changing. It's tough to be a bug, it's tough to be Rocket, because it fits in Guardians, it is about preservation, and it fits in with the theme of animals and conservation. Like, that's what he said about Avatar, and people were like, yeah, and then they go on the rides, and they're amazing, and you're like, I don't even care anymore. But if people said this, and they're like, Guardians, here's how it's gonna work, and then you go, and then people come see the show, it's gonna be bad anyways. So, I said, I just tried to make it work as best as I could. But Anywho, that was pretty much it. What's your next one?
Okay, my next one is Guardians of the Haunted Mansion.
Oh no.
So,
Haunted Mansion's sacred!
This one, yes. And that's why they're going to destroy it. Anything that, nothing is sacred.
Nothing is sacred.
Because everything can have an IP shoehorned into it, and you can make $5 extra from shoving an IP into it. Guardians of the Haunted Mansion. So actually, this is my longest one, which is about 3 lines longer than the others. But the opening narration is basically the same, Welcome, foolish mortals, to the Haunted Mansion. I am your host, your ghost host. And things start going along, blah, blah. You get on the Doom Buggy. Like, all of that's the same, basically. But once you get on the Doom Buggy, and he starts going through the narration, don't adjust your safety bar, or whatever he says.
I will lower it for you.
I will lower it for you. And then you get to the first section of narration, and you see the guy who's playing the piano, and then you see a figure jump across the piano keys, a small raccoon-like figure. And then suddenly, the next narration point, he starts narrating, and then you hear like static crackle or something, and he goes, "Wait, what's going on? Hey, what are you?" Whoa! And then either we use Rocket Raccoon because I think Rocket Raccoon.
He sort of hosts the Mission Breakout ride.
Yes, I think that's
and
why
it feels sort of appropriate.
Well, I was going to say he's the most cartoonish, and probably he's the easiest voice to imitate because he has a heavy accent.
Yeah.
And because he's a bit, did I ever say cartoonish?
Yeah.
He has a heavy accent is the point I'm trying to make. So and a gravelly voice, and so kids will be like, "Duh, that's Rocket." And then basically what happens is it's like the end of Ghostbusters 2016. Where they're shooting ghosts with lasers and then like making them flip around, and they are killing ghosts, and that's what the ride becomes.
Space ghosts?
No, not space ghosts. Just they're in the haunted mansion.
You said
and they're
Ghostbusters, and I thought of space.
No. Sorry. They're just in the haunted mansion, like shooting up, and that's the ride.
We see the ballroom and just Peter Quill standing on the organ blasting all of them. There's just all these dead ghosts twirling around.
I was gonna say, dead. Well, I was gonna say.
Oh, sorry. Dead a second
I was gonna say
time.
you could have like Gamora with like two blades spinning around on the floor with the ghosts surrounding her.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I even have in my notes here. Throughout the ride, they just go around blasting the ghosts with lasers like Ghostbusters 2016.
You said that Haunted Mansion isn't sacred, so I
should clarify. Nothing is sacred.
Nothing is sacred, which brought me to, I just wrote this down now because I thought of it. Pirates of the Guardians of the Carribean of the Galaxy. It's just pirates with the Guardians in it. So when they're like, "We wants the redhead," it's just Gamora tied up, and she's
but Gamora's not a redhead.
She's like purplish. Okay, it's just Karen Gillan, not even in character.
It's just Karen Gillan. Hey, Karen Gillan. What
am I doing here, Doctor?
Sorry, I was about to say. We put you as James Gunn made you into a very strong character with good motivation and an actually interesting character, at least in the second movie. How would you like to be the prostitute that's being bid on in our new Pirates of the Caribbean crossover with Guardians of the Galaxy? She's like,
you had me at Pirates.
Well, actually, you know what? I just remembered all the things she did on the Kevin Bishop show, so actually she'd be really okay with that. I think we got a little off track with this one.
That was literally the whole idea.
There's a Doctor Who reference in there. We got the checklist is good. So
I think I should probably say, boat ride. We talked about this when we did the Epcot episode. Boat rides could work in any country.
Oh yeah,
but boat ride could not work with any Marvel attraction.
This is true.
You can't put a boat ride with Guardians of the Galaxy because it's so like high energy and
well,
stuff.
I was about to say, as you described Guardians of the Boat Ride Galaxy, I just thought of Treasure Planet, and that's what came to mind. And I was like, boats would fit there, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's
Marvel.
I was gonna say, well, it's Disney.
And that means it's Marvel or Disney now.
Well, I was going to say that was just something that popped into my mind as you described the space future combined with pirates.
Okay.
What I'm saying is they've already done that. So, but anyways,
your turn.
My turn. Living with the galaxy instead of living with the land, living with the galaxy. It's the exact same ride. But the narration is replaced. The narration is replaced with but it's the different Guardians, and they all talk about the different sections you go through, and then it's all terrible, horrible jokes that are unfunny and annoying.
So it's like Jungle Cruise level of comedy.
No.
Meets. Oh, okay.
Because Jungle Cruise, I think, is genuinely entertaining because the puns are bad, and so you laugh because the pun is bad, not because the joke itself is good. This is just failed attempts at comedy, and I have written down here. Here in our greenhouses, we grow food, like Peter's socks are growing fungus, or something like that. That frightened me.
It was just so funny, Tom.
Exactly. That, because you can't do anything with it, and so that was my only thought. Where it's just a swap out of the hosts. That's it. That's all I have for Living with the Galaxy. Nothing changes. It's the exact same ride. Just the narration is different and annoying now.
I just picture, because it's space themed, it just replaces Mission Space. So we have Living with the Land, and then right across from that, on the other side, we have Living with the Galaxy. Just like it's the same. It's
I see.
Cut and paste of the same ride. It's just the narration's different. Oh, jeez. All right. My next one was, I thought, no one knows what to do with Stitch's Great Escape. Groot's Great Escape. Just, it's him standing in the middle of the... First of all, imagine just a tiny, like... I'm trying to think if it would be better as a full-sized Groot in the middle of that room,
right.
Or to keep it small like Stitch, you make it Baby Groot.
Here's my thought. What you do is you start with Baby Groot, and then you have some expository dialogue about how, like, in order to get Groot back to his regular size, we're going to bombard him with something energy.
I got it.
And then...
Quick, shoot him! No, I was going to say, my idea was that he's considered bad guy, like sort of how Stitch is the bad guy in the ride. And they're like,
yes.
Quick, shoot him with those sun-powered lasers! And then he grows, and it's like, oh no! Plants like sunlight, or something garbage like that.
Sure. You could even have, like, maybe not in the queue. Actually, maybe in the queue. You could have, like, so basically this facility has been built to contain Groot, and then what you do is you as you slowly go through, you see the Guardians, like, trying to get ready to bust him out. Like, they're trying to move covertly through stuff. Like an animatronic rocket poke his head out of, like, from behind a door and then go back in the queue line or something. And the implication is that the Guardians are trying to infiltrate and free Groot. And so maybe they change, like, no, that's too intelligent for them. That sounds like Star Trek.
Here, it's going to be the exact same thing. It's just going to be Groot, though. So, like, so there's the part in Stitch's Great Escape where all the lights go off. Here, I'm just going to recreate it right now with using this microphone.
Yes.
If you're not listening with headphones, put your headphones on now, because we're doing binaural audio. Here we go. So it's going to be like, all right, ladies and gentlemen, please stay calm. The lights got turned off. Where is he? I hear the sound of him. Nobody move. I am Groot. Ah! Like, that's the whole thing. And then at one point it just whispers in your ear. And then you know what? You know that stupid effect that I hate from Bugs, Tough You Bug, where they stab you in the back with that's just the same thing. It's the exact same effect.
Except it's one of Groot's roots.
The shoulder restraints now wrap around your entire torso, and then it's like, oh no, he's crushing them to death, and then it just squeezes you. Because we want kids to be even more terrified, right? Why are you giving me this face? Anyways. That was pretty much it. It's just Stitch's Great Escape.
Stitch's Great Escape with
Groot. You talked about terrible comedy. And I thought, where else can you hear terrible comedy? The Guardians of the Galaxy laugh floor. We travel through, like, the Collector's Fortress, and they're on a big glass case on the wall. Instead of Monsters, Inc. characters, it's the Guardians, and they're stuck there, and they just have to perform terrible stand-up comedy.
That sounds like one of the worst things I've ever heard. I'm sure.
I know, right?
I was going to say,
instead of the Enchanted Tiki Room, the Enchanted Collector's Room. And it's just because the Enchanted Tiki Room has all the animatronic birds hanging from the ceiling. Mm-hmm. So instead, it's just all those boxes hanging from the ceiling. And all the weird creatures in there just start singing.
Okay. Well, I was going to say that doesn't make sense because Guardians is sci-fi. And you can't have Enchanted.
Yeah, well, Epcot is the current and the future, and somehow the Guardians, like, it doesn't matter. Who cares?
But sci-fi...
Life is meaningless.
But sci-fi still fits in, like, half of science fiction is science. And Epcot is still science-y.
Why is the Collector's Fortress in Hollywood Land at Disney's California theme park? Who cares?
Because they're a movie.
Theming's out the window. Anything is possible. The Collector's Fortress landed in Adventureland. Who gives a crap? You said living with the land. That was actually one of my ideas, but I thought, what's another terrible thing at the land? The Circle of Life, but instead of Timon and Pumbaa, it's just Rocket and Groot. And because Groot could talk about the land. He could actually talk about, like, how plants and everything affect the world. I thought Circle of Life would actually be a good... That would actually be sort of appropriate if you have a plant creature talk about how plants affect the world. And, like, at the end, they're like, oh my god, we have so many cars, it's killing Groot.
There's so much carbon monoxide in the air that Groot is dying.
Groot's dying. Everyone clap your hands and say, I believe in plants. I do believe in plants.
It's very
Disney owns Peter Pan. That works.
They don't own Peter Pan. They own a very specific version of Peter Pan that everyone thinks of when
Has any other Peter Pan done well, though?
I think that one from, like, 2005.
Owned with Jeremy Irons?
Was it Jeremy Irons?
Yeah.
Maybe 2001. That old one.
Lucius Malfoy.
That's not Jeremy Irons.
What? Yes, it is. Who is it?
Jeremy Irons isn't Lucius Malfoy. That's Jason Isaacs.
Wait. Hang on. I'm getting them confused. Which one's which?
Jason Isaacs is Lucius Malfoy. Jeremy Irons is Scar. And Alfred in the new Batman movies.
Right, Jeremy Irons is Scar. Jeremy Irons is Alfred. Okay. Yes,
that's right.
It was Jason Isaacs. Jason Isaacs was Captain Hook.
Yes. I think that's the one we're thinking of.
Now that we got that out of the way, you liked Muppet Vision 3D, right?
I did actually like Muppet Vision 3D. I thought it was going to be a horrible sellout, but it was actually pretty good.
Rocket Vision 3D. It's just him like, hey, you! And he's just poking his finger at people. And he's just screaming at them. Here's the raccoon. To bring it all back.
To bring it... It's literally the same video as It's Tough to Be Rocket Raccoon, except it's just in a different theater.
Yep.
Incredible.
Okay, now we come to the finale. This is what I've been so excited to talk about.
Okay.
Journey into Imagination with Rocket.
Okay, you have a whole thing.
I have a whole thing, so hear me out.
I get to sit quietly and listen.
The Imagination Pavilion looks exactly the same way it does, except this time the Milano ship is just crashed into the front of it. The front of the Imagination Institute, it looks exactly the same. It's still the Imagination Institute. I'm sorry. We're keeping it that way for money's sake. Where there's going to be a lot of Rocket and Figment animatronics. They're going to be so much money. Anyways, so we have the front of the Imagination Pavilion and we walk in, but the Milano ship is crashed there. So instead of walking into the lobby, we walk into the spaceship and we get to see all these posters and memorabilia from the Guardians. Because if you don't know Guardians, you have to get explained it just very briefly. Maybe there's like a video screen there and it's like, these are the Guardians, they saved us, or like that music video with David Hasselhoff for Inferno's playing. Anyways, so then we walk through the Imagination Institute. We still see Dr. Nigel Channing, but the video's like staticky, like it's like crackling, like, hello, I'm Dr. Nigel. And then every once in a while, instead of seeing Figment bouncing on like the little pre-show screens, we see like Rocket like running past or his ears perked up or something. Mm-hmm. So the ride starts the way it normally does. Hello, I'm Dr. Nigel Channing, and welcome to the Imagination Institute. We hear a loud bang like a gunshot going off. And then a net launcher just like collapses him onto the ground. Rocket's like, all right, enough of this. You know what? Hang on. I wrote it.
Okay. Well, while you grab that dialogue you pulled up, whenever you've described that to me before, that specific, like, the net gun hitting Eric Idle, and all I can picture, because Eric Idle's too old to re-record new stuff, is like a horrible freeze frame where they stretch and squash him and make him fall over.
That's absolutely it. It's just like darn. we just gotta use that old footage, but he wasn't in front of a green screen. Just edit it up, crop it, just like use the lasso tool in Photoshop.
Yeah, exactly.
And then just like flash animate him like turning 90 degrees.
Exactly.
Anyways, then Rocket shows up and he's like, we just hear like oof as like Rocket jumps on top of his body to match where the camera is. He's like, enough of that nonsense. Hey there, in case you weren't paying attention, I'm Rocket, one of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and I got a huge problem. You see, our ship crashed into this Imagination Institute and our warp drive component's gone missing. Without it, we can't get out of this place. And then Figment shows up. I think I can help. What the heck are you? I'm the figment of imagination. And Rocket's like, oh, please, I have no imagination. And Figment's like, everyone has imagination. I can take you to your warp drive thing. He's like, fine, but no singing. And Figment's like, I can't make any promises. He's like, fine, but I'm putting on my own music. And then we just hear like, and Rocket or Figment's like, I can work with this. And then we go into like a crazy hard rock rendition of One Little Spark, and we travel throughout the rest of the Imagination Institute, but it's just like, it's like, here's art, and he's like, I never liked art, and then we get to the end, and he's like, I've got the warp core, now all I gotta do is try and creatively rewire it into this thing, and then we can blast off. Figment's like, you like science? Well, science is imagination. Rocket's like, it is? How does that work? And then he sings the bit, and then Rocket's like, now I get it. Imagination is ideas, and I have tons of ideas. Let's get out of here. And then he's like, imagination's a blast. And then the ship launches off, and then we fly through space, and then we hear like this crazy rock version of One Little Spark.
Again.
And then it ends, and he crashes back in the Imagination Pavilion, because obviously you go outside the attraction, the ship still has to be crashed into it. So Figment's like, here we go again.
All right. I like this. One change.
Yes.
You bring Groot in.
Okay.
And Groot shows up next to Rocket at the beginning. And instead of Rocket being like, I have no imagination, Groot thinks he doesn't have any imagination. And so Groot has to be convinced he has an imagination. Because if you have seen Guardians 1 and 2, Rocket absolutely has an imagination. Bring Groot along, because I think Groot fits the role of, or Drax even, of having no imagination.
God, Journey into Imagination with Drax.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, he's still like, I don't get it. Like,
and that's why we crash. But anyways, yeah, that's okay, I guess.
What is this purple monstrosity?
It looks like a dragon. I wish to kill it.
I was about to say that. Gamora, because she's like the no nonsense kind of person. Literally, just all the Guardians. Instead of like touch, taste, and smell and all this stuff, each room is just a different Guardian understanding how they use imagination.
You know what? That could work.
And then Peter Quills is like music, because
he listens.
He likes music.
I guess he likes music. I guess that's
the point. Is none of the Guardians have imagination, but the Riders do. Unlike the Journey into Your Imagination, where it tells you have no imagination.
Can we get over that? It's gone.
No, I want to try and understand who thought that was a good idea. Imagineers created this. You know what? I think it's a metaphor for like Michael Eisner. So that they're like, we're going to make a ride for Michael Eisner. And then you go on the ride and it's like, well, you have no imagination. And then at the end it's like, but here's a baby's head on a guitar. And it's like, you're so creative. These are things that happen. There's like a typewriter with a banana on it.
I'm
like,
aware.
look how creative.
I've seen videos.
Anyways, we've had a lot of fun on this episode, but in all seriousness,
It's time to stop having fun now.
It's time to stop having fun. What I was gonna say is that Mission Breakout, everyone complained about it. Yeah. As soon as they're like, you're getting rid of Tower of Terror, possibly the least themed version of Tower of Terror at any Disney park, the one in California. You're getting rid of it? No, it's a treasure. And then they brought in Guardians, and the way they made that ride, it looks like such a good time. It looks so fun because the song is always different. The video screens that we see of the characters are always going to be different. Every time you ride, the drop sequence is different. And just the music, instead of having this creepy Tower of Terror, it's these rocking 80s songs. And you're right, like, if it didn't have that 80s music, it might not work. But then we have the Monsters After Dark version where they composed an original song, and it still worked. It was scary, but it was still enjoyably fun in a way.
May I make an observation?
Of course.
It is the difference between thrilling and frightening.
Yes.
Tower of Terror Hollywood, the Twilight Zone themed one, is meant to be scary. You're meant to be like, ooh, the drop, it's coming, ooh.
The music and sound effects,
exactly.
everything was
everything
built
is
to make you fearful.
Yes, it's building up to this. It's building up to the drop. Whereas Guardians, it's like the drop's coming and it builds up to it in a different way, where it's less a scary drop into the nightmare realm of the Twilight Zone and more this is the climax of a Guardians movie that's fun and exciting and action packed.
Yeah.
And the thrill you receive from being launched up and down in the air makes you feel like you are part of that climactic thing.
The video screens, like what's happening on them, is pretty funny.
Yes.
Like Peter Quill's like, ha ha, got you, and then he turns around, and he's like, ah, and there's like a bunch of monsters chasing him still.
Exactly.
Or like the whole bit where like Drax jumping out of the monster's mouth and then punching it back in the face again. Mm-hmm. Like it invokes this feeling of fun. And
yes.
We've watched Ellen's Energy Adventure. It's trying to be funny. It's like the Journey into Imagination with Figment, right? It's that kind of trying to be funny 90s cheese.
Yes.
But I think this new one, like if it's going to be Guardians coming to Epcot, everyone has still complained about it, even though Ellen's Energy Adventure was not a perfect ride. But it's still going to be fun. It'll be what you said, thrilling, instead of like, I mean, not that Ellen's was frightening, but it was educational. This one's going to be more thrilling, and that education hopefully will still be in there.
I was going to say, I think the big thing with Ellen's Energy Adventure was the scope of it. The reason people love it was because of how big it was, not because it was necessarily
the two theaters and the diorama.
Exactly, and it's not necessarily a what do you call it? A perfect ride or a thoroughly sacred, entertaining ride like Haunted Mansion is. The Guardians were unique in their interpretation and also the vision of the filmmaker, because they were a property that no one cared about, and so James Gunn could do whatever he wanted, basically, with it. Obviously not whatever he wanted, but the point is that it breathed new life into something. And because it was so popular, they made not only the sequel, but have begun really pushing it.
And the other thing is that it's not tied to any specific existing canon. It can sort of exist outside of that universe because it takes place in the galaxy. So when it comes to like the rides, for example, that they're making, they could be wherever the heck they want. Mm-hmm. It could be in Disney World. It doesn't really even matter. Or the ride could take place at Epcot, which might actually end up happening.
There is a character for everyone there, is what I'm saying. And because of that, it means that it can easily be pasted over something, and people will be like, hey, there's that character I like. And that shoots a little bit of dopamine into their brain or something, and it makes them want to go give Disney more money.
It also helps that they had a pretty stellar soundtrack, which people gobbled up because it was 80s nostalgia.
Yes.
But
that's the other factor that I'm bitter about.
But also, I look at it as sometimes that music does drive the story forward in like scenes where he's making Gamora listen to songs and he's sort of had this romantic thing with her. And what they did with the second movie and inventing the song Inferno, which I actually really enjoy, it sort of is a perfect blend of, there's different things that everyone can enjoy in the movie, and it's a little bit hard to hate it because the things that it does well, it does really well. Like the emotion between Peter Quill's character and his backstory, and basically all of the characters' backstories.
I was going to say, these characters feel pretty real. Even if one of them's a talking raccoon who's crying at the end of Guardians 2, I still felt for that character because there was something I understood about them and understood where they were emotionally.
You know what? Really? Actually, I forgot to tell you, I got this pudding. It's Captain America pudding.
Yeah?
And it's just, it tastes very bland. It's like there's nothing...
There's nothing
it's like there's nothing there, yeah.
Yeah.
But then I tried these Guardians of the Galaxy pudding, and it's like 6 different flavors in my mouth.
That took us back a little bit. I went on a huge rant that is going to get cut. And in fact, I want you to keep this part where I talk about the rant, so that way people will always wonder what that rant is. And then
you gotta become Wigs members and then get that exclusive audio clip.
No one ever gets to hear that rant. and that's gonna generate interest.
So we wanted to make this a little bit more interactive. So we asked you guys on Twitter to give us your ideas for what you would rehab.
Okay.
Dan Howell says, it's a small galaxy. It's just, I'm assuming it's a small world, but with Guardians of the Galaxy.
Space Pirates of Nowhere.
So that's the Guardians' base of operations, which looks like a giant skull.
Oh, that's right, the giant skull. Okay.
Test track, but with the Milano. So it's just test track, but you're riding in
the Milano?
The tiny Milano ship. Rocket's Great Escape. Oh! I called it!
There you go. I think that's going to be a fun one. Rock and Roller Coaster starring Guardians of the Galaxy because of the soundtrack. All right, that's fair.
We already have a Rock and Roller Coaster, which is being taken over by Iron Man at another Disney park.
Space Pirates of Nowhere. We seem to keep coming back to space pirates because we discussed space pirates earlier.
Is that kind of what they are?
What I'm saying is we need a Treasure Planet ride.
All right, we got a ton more here. So we have Ben Harris of WDWNT says the Ravagers take over Pandora. So now we got Na'vi Ravager Journey and Fight of Passage.
Okay, that actually sounds really cool. Where
just put like laser blaster things on the Flight of Passage.
No.
Passage handles.
What it is like the Pandorans, the Na'vi. That's what they're called. Oh
yeah. Well, sorry. I read that wrong. So it's like the Ravagers take over Pandora.
Well, I was gonna say, it's the same thing, where a drunk actor man is like, we're gonna put you on a Banshee, and here's fake Sigourney Weaver, and then during your rite of passage, like a ship flies in. And it's like, oh, look out, it's the Ravagers, they're attacking! And then you have to fly the Banshee away from the Ravagers, and they chase you and shoot lasers at you. And then, I don't know, some stuff happens. It's a motion simulator.
All right, the next one we got is from Ron Deanna of WDWNT, who says, Peter Quill's flight. So it's Peter Pan's flight, but you're flying with Star-Lord. I think that one works just for the pun, and I want to make that a t-shirt already.
Okay.
Ron Deanna also says Spaceship Ego. So instead
of Spaceship Earth, it's Ego, the living planet.
Just a giant living planet, and that would be cool. You just see like static show scenes of like, no, I'm gonna fight you, and it's just like the fight scene from the end of the movie, basically.
Yeah,
that'd be fun.
Okay, I guess.
What? Soaring Over Nowhere. Okay, that one's good. That one's also from Ben Harris.
Nowhere seems to be popular, despite the fact that I don't remember what it was or what its importance was to the plot. I just remember that it was a giant space skull, presumably belonging to like Galactus or something.
Hank Jensen from WWT gave us a song idea: "When You Wish Upon a Star-Lord." That's all. Let's move on from that.
All right.
Ron Deanna also says, and I don't understand the references here, so I'm just going to butcher these. Corpseman Days Nova Corpse Spin. So instead of Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger spin, where we sit in the ride vehicles and laser blast things,
we're part of the Nova Corps?
It's Corpseman Days Nova Corpse Spin.
I don't know who Corpseman Days is.
Me neither, but the title's
Let me see the name. How's it spelled? Corpseman Days. I don't know who that is.
The next one we got is
the Nova Corps works, I guess.
Next one is Accusers of the Carribean. So it's like Ronan the Accuser. We wants the blue head. That's what Ben Harris said. And here's one that's a little bit too real. Star-Lord's Dance-Off. Because that's an actual thing that's going to be happening at the American Garden Theater in Epcot outside the American Adventure soon. So that's a little bit too real.
I was about to say, you said the American Guardian Theater, and I was like, oh, thank God. But then you were like, outside of the American Adventure, and I was like, well, all right, sure. If that's how we're going to do this. I feel like Star-Lord in front of that old colonial home having a dance-off, that feels very out of place.
Well, it's real. I mean, they're on a stage, but there's going to be like... everyone agrees this doesn't make sense. Disney announced this, and they're like, we have Peter Quill, and Gamora's gonna be there dancing, and there's gonna be an alien band. And we're like, in the American Pavilion Theater? It just doesn't make sense. I'll buy Guardians of the Galaxy in the Energy Pavilion, but I will not buy a Star-Lord dance-off at the American Pavilion. That's clearly the only theater they have that they could put something like that.
Rest in peace, Walt Disney's dream for Epcot.
Anyways, thanks for your suggestions on Twitter, as well as everyone from WDWNT. If you had infinite time and money, what would you do to put Guardians into one of your favorite rides, attractions, or anywhere else inside the Disney theme parks? Be sure to let us know. Follow us at Ride Rehab on Twitter and Facebook. You can also follow at WDWNT on Instagram. And be sure to bookmark Ride Rehab so you never miss an episode of this show, which comes out the 7th of every month. 7! 7, yeah, 7. We have a lot of great episodes coming up, and we can't wait for you guys to hear them. So be sure to listen to Ride Rehab, and please leave us a review on iTunes. Let us know what you like about the show and what you wish you could change about Ride Rehab itself, because we'd love to hear your feedback, and we want to start a conversation about Disney parks and the rides themselves.
A big thank you to Blake Robinson and Kevin Brighting for our new intro. For Ride Rehab, I'm Thomas Kiernan.
And I'm Tyler.
Halftime.
Say goodnight, Thomas.
Good night, Thomas.